right now we're officially recording this week's episode of the Midweek Howl. And Howler, I mentioned it before, I'm kind of disappointed I didn't record the last 20 minutes of us talking with our guest today, because that would have been great Patreon material, maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. I have my doubts, but
You have your doubts. Mm-hmm. Okay. But so today we have a very special guest. And we do that sometimes here on the Midweek Howl, bring in somebody that we find interesting, or somebody we just want everybody to get a chance to meet. And I heard about this gentleman on one of our favorite podcasts, Disgraceland, by the great hosted by the great Jake Brennan. He mentioned this guy we're going to have on, and I was so enamored with the story, I had to find out more. And so without further ado, we're going to bring on Alan Chalfant. Did I get that right?
Yep, that was perfect.
who has one of the greatest, in my opinion, one of the greatest businesses that he started from scratch, basically on a wing and a prayer. It's called Bread Truck Records. And so, Alan, I want to hear, and I'm sure the Howler does too. First of all, you got to have a great backstory about, your life and some of the stuff that you've done leading up to to this brilliant idea called Bread Truck Records. So, just fill us in a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about your early career, and how you ended up with this amazing business.
Yeah. So I have always been obsessed with music since I was a little kid, and had kind of a tumultuous home life. Ended up in some foster care and stuff like that when I was a kid, and ended up moving in with my martial arts instructor. And after high school, didn't know what I was going to do, so ended up joining the Air Force and got out for a few years, got my head straight, and came back and did some food management jobs because I'd done some food stuff in high school. I came back in the hometown burger place. The manager that was there had just got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. So the owner said, "Hey, why don't you go ahead and take over? We'll give you a shot." And I said, "Okay." And from there, I went on to do a couple other things, and I had a chance meeting with this guy named Dan Price. People may recognize it because he's the guy that cut his salary down to $70,000 a year to pay all of his employees $70,000 a year and all that. And people have their opinions about all that and stuff. But anyway, I ended up being like the second employee of his company and doing outside sales, credit card processing sales, right? So going in, trying
you made some money then. You sold the processing machine or the service?
Selling machines, and I was selling the rates. So I'd go in and say, "Hey, bank charges you this % every time you swipe your card," and blah, blah. And I joked that that's how I learned to get kicked out of business gracefully, right? Because most people, maybe their bank's charging them a couple $100 a month. They don't care. It's set up. It's whatever, So I did okay, but I was trying to do better, right? So I got a hold of this company that said that they, provided salesmen with leads that you could target specifically. Great. So I call them and I end up getting recruited to sell for them. I did super well. It was outside sales, working with real estate, stuff like that. I ended up getting this really big deal I was about to close. And that's when the 2008 crash happened. And a lot of people got laid off. I got kept on for a little while, but about 2 weeks before this huge deal that was going to be like $50,000 in commission was going to close, I got let go. And I didn't know enough as a young man with nobody really around me to help me to get a lawyer, And so I just kind of moved on and did sales for a company called Braun that sold industrial tapes, all kinds of crazy stuff, fire retardant stuff that goes on planes. You don't even want to know how much tape goes on planes. I up getting laid off from there when there was another turn in the economy too. And, it's like companies, when there's the first sign, they'll look at you and go, oh, man, you're part of the family. But then when things go wrong, they go, oh, God, we got to get rid of the salespeople, and so.
They only get rid of the good ones.
That's the way it seems sometimes.
Well, that's what I started to say. I didn't want to interrupt you there. Now, do you think they legitimately need to lay off? Or I know some friends of mine that their opinion is once the company owes you a bunch of money, they can see that forecasted next quarter. If you close all these deals, they're going to owe you this much money, and they come up with some BS to whack you or put you in a trick bag just to beat you out of your money.
Well, and what that is definitely part of it. What actually happened is the main owner in the corporate was in Denver. They had a few locations around, but the oldest son of the owner married a girl from Washington.
Oh yeah, and they needed to get him her a job or somebody a job.
They needed to give him the job, so they let go of me and another guy. He got all of our accounts. And again, you're working day to day. Do you get a lawyer or do you just go get another job? And for somebody that's got the money saved up, maybe they do the lawyer route. But I just had to keep working. I came from a poor family, and that's just how it goes. So I felt like I was doing better just by the fact that I was, doing a white collar job, right? That, was a leg up for me, I thought. And so I got together with the woman that's my wife now, and we're just kind of trucking through life. We tried to have a few kids, but weren't able to. And we're driving to Target one day, and we get a call that her brother and his wife, who had quite a few kids up to that point and were strung out on drugs real bad, had their 7th child, and he was born addicted, and all the kids were getting yanked. And if we didn't get down there within a half an hour to figure it out, and they went into custody, it was going to be way harder to get them. You'd have to go through a kind of different process. So we went down there and did it, and it worked out. We brought in one boy first, another brother brought in 3 girls. They already had kids, and another sister brought in a couple kids. And so we're living in a 1-bedroom apartment at the time, and that's what we could do. So
you adopted your nephews.
Well, so what ended up happening later on down the road is we're going through the process, and the families communicating. We try to get together and do all this. Is her other brother there? He had 2 older girls already, and my girls were 8 and 11 at the time, and his were 15, 16, and they were just being mean girls, man. Like they just they weren't getting along, and they were just constantly kind of disincluding them and putting them down. And by then, the one that had been born addicted had come with us. He went to a little baby foster care rehab, when he was born.
I've never heard of such an animal.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, you think, it's hard enough being born, right? And so you can't tell anybody anything, and everything's all crazy. Well, imagine that being addicted to drugs and then trying to be the person that takes care of that screaming baby, right? So it takes a special kind of place and special kind of people, to do that work. Because I know what it's like to have kids, and I'm sure you know what it's like to have a baby that won't stop screaming, and there's a special kind of headache that forms there, So he went through that and came to us, and we started telling the girls, hey, why don't you start coming weekends? We'll see how it goes. I kept telling them there's no others here, right? We don't have kids of our own, so there's nobody to compete with. It's just your little brother, so you already know. And funny little anecdote, when Sam first came to us, they had been actually living out of a van, and the father wasn't in the picture anymore. And at that point, it was just mom and the kids. And little Sammy did not ask for mom once. It was always Bella Jasmine. I want Bella Jasmine, because that's who took care of him. Mom was off doing what she was doing. And so the fact that he got to have Bella and Jasmine come live with him and we worked him in, and at that point, we adopted all of the kids. And then 2 weeks to the day after the adoption, the pandemic was announced. And I ended up getting laid off the sales job I was doing. And my wife got laid off. She got her job back. Fortunately, she's a title clerk for a Chevrolet dealership here in town. And, during that time, we're just kind of stuck at home. And I'm sitting there thinking about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And I've loved music forever. I've been a record collector since I was young. And I had ended up selling a lot of good stuff to get a big enough place for 4 kids, because going from a 1-bedroom penthouse apartment to, a big enough house for 4 kids is expensive. And I sold a lot of that stuff. And then a couple of years later, during the pandemic, a lot of that stuff rose in value too. And I'd still kept a lot of stuff. And I started thinking, well, how am I going to do this? And I was talking to a buddy who I had done a huge favor for back in the day. He'd had some mental problems. He had gotten knocked on the head. He was down in the Haight-Ashbury and right there on the corner before everything was legal, and decided he was going to smoke up right there, in the historic spot. And the cop, they're just waiting, and he ended up grabbing him and he got his head slammed on the ground. And he just had an episode, started accusing faculty of stuff. And I had helped him get to all of his appointments and spend time with him, which is not easy to do with someone that's in that state, but he ended up getting out of it and getting the help that he needed and getting back to school. And since then, he graduated from the UW's engineering program and doing well and gotten a great job and stuff. And he said, well, I'm going to help you out with this, when I started talking about opening up a record store and the possibility. So he kind of just said, if you hadn't done that for me, then I wouldn't be where I am. So here, let me help you out a little. And he cut me a $5,000 check. And growing up as a poor kid, that's hard to accept even, right? But, every once in a while, you just got to allow yourself to take some grace. And I was smart with it. I bought, got really, really lucky, bought a couple of estates worth of records that was really good stuff, great collections. Bought a truck and definitely went through some trials with that. First guy I gave $1,000 deposit to paint the side of it, ran off with it, just some stuff. But eventually I got it built and here it is. So that's kind of long, but that's the story, man.
Well, first off, and we talked. You talked a little bit about taking in your nieces and nephews. Okay,
yeah. That
alone is a great story. That you and your wife were great enough people to, just be unselfish and take in these kids, especially one that's born with some problems already that you don't really know how that's going to manifest itself later down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's one of those things, we're talking to doctors and stuff like that, because we want to know, not like it would make a difference, but
yeah,
you got to plan for the fight. Right. And so we're wondering, and one of the cool things about it is, especially with methamphetamine, is that they say kids that are born addicted, that are born into chaos, are going to be chaotic people. Kids that are born addicted, that are born into homes, or that, are put into homes that are calm, loving, and peaceful, end up being calm, loving, and peaceful people, right? That, most of the time that is the way that it works out. So, when it comes to that nature versus nurture, that's kind of a cool thing to know that, as long as they get the help they need, there's no reason that things shouldn't go well for them in life.
Yeah. And I agree. I mean, but I think that's just, it's hard enough with your own kids, but to take in somebody else's kids and, show them that kind of love and support, that's awesome. Then the story of stepping up for your friend and helping him out. I mean, because that is a tough thing to do as well, especially when you're trying to live your own life, but you suddenly become somebody else's, an adult support system,
right?
To try to help. That is a great thing, so there's like 5 different stories in your story that just by themselves are amazing. And, but I mean, so let's just talk about what it is, why you thought the whole idea of making a mobile record store was like why that idea appealed to you and why you thought it would work.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I think we need to back up and introduce what he does. Let's talk about the store and what he does, and then that way people will know what we're talking about or what he's talking about.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so Bread Truck Records is a mobile events-based record store. We specialize in original pressings and hard-to-find records. The thought behind it when I started building it is, okay, well, I don't want to be just like a regular record store when you try to go look in the racks and, you're trying to find your favorite artists and most of the stuff is gone, right? Like I want to be the guy that has the cool stuff there and that doesn't just sell it online, right? That gives people a chance to find the neat stuff in the racks. So that was kind of the idea.
So what strikes me first isn't it scary? Wasn't it scary that there wasn't one place for people to come find you? Well, every time, or was that part of the charm of the whole thing?
I think that's part of the charm, right? Well, like what I keep telling people is the heavyweight champ doesn't box on cable, right? So if I'm going to be something special and I've got original Blue Notes and Clefs and 6i Columbias, and record collectors will know exactly what I'm talking about, and things like that in my racks, then you're going to want to find me at whatever event that I'm at. And I'm going to put it out there, at whatever event I'm going to be at, whether I'm partnering with another business to do that, or whether it's an event that I've created on my own, I'm going to blast that out there, and it's your job to get to me. Right. So, it doesn't cost anybody anything. I don't charge a business to partner with them or anything like that. Let's say your significant other wants to have me there for your birthday, then there'd be like a minimum gift certificate for me to pull up to the house and let him and his boys shop. But, it's not crazy or anything. But I think that's exactly it, is that I want to be like the pay-per-view of record stores, and so I want people to come seek me out,
That's great. When you told me the whole idea, I mean, I think that is the number one greatest thing is if your husband's a record collector into music, and you get him a $200 gift certificate or whatever, right, and you'll pull up to the house. Yep. And you can go out
or wherever you're having your party.
Yeah, right? I think that is the most brilliant thing. I mean, I'm not trying to discriminate here, but I think guys really would really dig that. I think that's kind of a manly, kind of cool thing. Like I said, I'm not discriminating. I'm just saying that as a guy, I'm a little more excited about that. Yeah.
Most record collectors are men. Now, I have met women record collectors that know their stuff and are, fantastic and everything in between. But yeah, predominantly it's a male dominated hobby. And really for 78s going back, that's definitely male dominated. So
how many records can you get in a bread truck? Let's just start off with the simple questions. How many records are you toting around?
I went with the theme. And so from a local company up here, I actually bought really sturdy, like bread display racks.
Ooh, I like it.
And reinforced them, right? So yeah, sticking with it. And so I can fit about 70 records into each bay, and 6. So let me tell you here. It's funny. I've been asked how many records I have, but then I don't think about how many I have on the truck. So probably about 2,500 records, which is a lot more than you think it is. When people see inside the truck, they're always surprised because they think it's just going to be like, one row of records or something. And it was very important to me that it looked like something special and aesthetically pleasing on the inside, and that it not look like a garage sale on wheels.
I like it. Yeah.
I had a lot of people tell me, well, why don't you just throw up some peach crates and go around? And I'm like, because you only get one chance to make a first impression. Right. And if I'm going to be, this great events based record store, I can't be rolling around with unfinished crap,
So what if somebody, now can you cater your inventory based on the event that you're going to? Okay.
Yes, I can. And I've thought about doing even like theme nights and stuff like that. Because it's mobile and the racks are the way they are. It's really easy to just grab stuff, go inside and swap it out, because I don't have any way to even put all of the different genres of things that I have in the truck because it is space limited. But I've got a inventory room downstairs. So if people do request stuff, and they say, hey, I'm going to show up to the event, then I'll put it on the truck. I've even thought about doing theme nights. I could do an entire country or jazz or rock night or something like that.
I noticed you didn't mention disco. Is that
There's a couple snuck in there, but no, I don't think it's coming back, man.
What do you mean? It doesn't have to come back. It never left.
We're just gonna have to let it go, I think.
It never left. Never left.
For some,
So now, is there a place in this trip? Because I know I messaged you that when we put this episode up, if I want to get if you do a little video tour, I want to put that up for like our listeners to check out, because I think that's important, because, and I told you this from the beginning, like, I know the guy screwed you over, took the money, and did not follow through on painting the truck. But whoever did finally do the design and stuff, you are set up for some of the greatest merch ever, because those colors and those designs on your truck are going to be perfect for stickers and t-shirts. I mean, I encourage everybody, and we'll tell everybody when we're done where they can go find you and follow you at. But you'll see what I'm talking about. I
appreciate that.
You got some good, really cool looking stuff, and I think.
Thank you.
I think the cool thing is if people, once they hear your story and hear how you kind of started and the other things that you've been doing, because right now you're only a one-man truck in northwestern part of the United States, and they may not be able to support you by going and buying records off. Hey, at least go buy a t-shirt or go buy
t-shirt stickers.
And just get the word out, because I got a feeling before too long there's going to be bread truck mobile record stores all over the United States.
That's what I'm going to shoot for here. Yeah, I want to put together a piece of software that puts together, inventory, sales tracking, and all that. But I think really the most important piece is I've been cultivating searches for years now around finding records on peer-to-peer sharing sites, everything from, OfferUp to Macari to Facebook Marketplace to Craigslist. I've got searches set for all of them. So I want to take a piece of software that grabs all of that stuff and puts it into one dashboard that you can look at every day along with everything else, and do exactly that. Build trucks for other people that want to do it. So there could be,
I think that's
anywhere.
I think that's brilliant, because like I said, I can definitely imagine one of these in like Nashville, and and in fact, I was telling one of our big fans, I was talking to him today, old Happy Harris from down in Atlanta, and he was like, "Are you kidding me? That's a great idea." He goes, "There's so many cool places in Atlanta that a truck like that would, showing up for an event or at a space." He goes, "That would just be amazing." And I'm thinking, well, when you hear this spiel, maybe you should buy into a franchise,
right?
Franchise. But I think that's a brilliant, because I've looked for some records online. I'm not by any stretch of the imagination a professional record collector, but there are a few things that I'd like to obtain. And that whole idea of you making a dashboard where you can find that sort of stuff all in one place and be notified daily, that's brilliant,
Yeah, well, you think about, normally someone sets up a shop, they get hooked up with some kind of distributor for whatever products they're selling. They put their markup on it, they put them in the racks, and they go as they do, right? Well, I'm working with individual people. I'm going to estate sales, garage sales, stuff like that. And so you've got to stay on top of it. I'm not the only person looking for records too. It's gotten pretty popular again. So if you don't have somewhere that you can go and find these things and be one of the first people to respond, then you're not going to get the pick of the litter. If I show up to an estate sale and it's Saturday and it's been going since Friday and there are records there, I know there's not going to be much left that's worth it.
So that's an interesting question, because you do come across a lot of records for sale. You just do. You see them for sale. So what records are just not worth purchasing as far as for something that's going to increase in value? Like what do you see a ton of that you're just like,
just don't say disco, right? Just don't say,
don't say disco.
Saturday Night Fever is a great one. Everybody should buy that one.
I think I've got probably about 15 copies in my inventory room. With what I see that just kind of isn't worth buying, you see a lot of Mantovani, Mitch Miller, I'm sure just sing along with Mitch Miller and stuff like that. As a kid. Yeah. So he put out a ton of stuff. Lawrence Welk. What'll happen is you end up seeing, the Martin Denny Exotica, that I call it the leftovers, right? Once the garage sale has happened, once the grandkids have gone through and picked out the stuff that they wanted and all that, there's the leftovers. And so you end up seeing a lot of those same records over and over again that people just don't want. And that's exactly it. It's your Lawrence Welk and, all that kind of stuff. But you have to be careful in those collections too, right? Because there are records where this artist is not all that known, but they put out one album and it happens to be pretty sought after. And so you've really got to know your stuff when you're going through collections like that. I picked up 3 boxes of records the other day and drove a half an hour to go grab them. And, I don't think there's much in there. Okay, cool. Well, there ended up being a couple of cool things in there. There was a original Marty Robbins Gunfighter, an original copy of the Seeds' first record on GNP. And, a lot of people might not recognize that stuff, but people that collect records do. So
there was a Marty Robbins Gunfighter
in the shrink wrap still, not a bit of ringware on it. Perfect, beautiful 2i Columbia. It was gorgeous.
Yep. So what's something like that worth?
That's
give me top of the ticket. You'd be happy to take it right now in cash in the parking lot.
$40.
Okay.
And I think that would be a fair price. I've seen them go for more and less, but
that's like a great concept album, right? The whole
and then there was a bunch of follow-ups too. They got up to the Gunfighter Volume 5 or something.
Yeah, that's it. So it makes you wonder, why did they buy it if it's still in the shrink wrap? Like they had no intention of they did. So
there's that's a kind of a misnomer term. So in the record world, in the shrink means that it still has the shrink wrap on it. It's just been slit open.
Okay.
Still sealed. That's a whole different realm, right? Because we're going from what regular records cost to the stratosphere, honestly. I've got a few sealed old records squirreled away in my original Lane record chest that are under lock and key. I've got a sealed Iggy and the Stooges first press that
no way
I'm hoping is worth a pretty penny by the time the boys graduate, because it's already pretty expensive now. So
You have an Iggy and the Stooges, like, so that has to be like a regional from Michigan or something, right? Like,
yeah. Well, so what ended up happening is this guy that lives in Idaho had bought a storage unit, and there was a bunch of old radio station equipment. Some old radio station that had shut down had packed all of its equipment and all of its records in probably about that time and had been sitting there for years. And finally, the person that owned the storage auction decided that the storage place decided they were going to auction off all the old stuff that had been sitting there for 20, 30 years. And this kid gets this stuff and sees it in there, and he knew what he had. And so I made some cool trades and some cash for it as well. But there's opinions about sealed records in the record community. It's honestly an argument, right? Like,
how do you know that? Hold on a second. How do you know they're not resealed?
You just got to know your stuff. You've got to know about the type of plastic that they used. What kind of machines did they have? Who was sealing the records? How were they doing it? Because there are people that try to fake it. Like, you'll look online every once in a while and you'll see an original 56 Elvis, his first 12-inch LP that he put out on RCA. And it'll say it's got the shrink wrap on it and a sticker. BS. They took something from a couple years later and do it. They weren't shrink wrapping records in 56. If a record was sealed in 56, it was sealed with an inside bag. So you just got to know these things. That's it. Because people will pay. You can take even a modern album. Let's say Metallica's Master of Puppets, a first press that came out on Elektra. Somebody will pay $100 for a regular copy. A copy with the shrink wrap and the original hype stickers on it will go for $175, $200, and sometimes more, depending on who just happens to be bidding and how big their bank account is and how bad they want that.
But it's a guy that's going to put that on a shelf somewhere. He's not going to play it.
Sometimes, yes, right? Like,
unless he's Johnny Depp, right? Drinking $50,000 bottles of wine.
I mean, no, not really. I'm not rich by any means, right? But I have records that are worth a few $100 that I play every once in a while. But I also,
but they weren't shrink wrapped when you bought them.
Well, no, they weren't sealed.
Right.
The older ones, they may have the shrink wrap on them, but they're opened on the other side, so you can pull it out. But like, I got it as a gift for the guy at the record store I was working for. But the turntable I've got is like $1,500, and the needle on it is like $500 alone, right? This isn't like a Target Crosley thing. So
yeah.
Playing a $200 old school, like I've got an original Jerry Lee Lewis, the first 12-inch he put out on Sun. That's just gorgeous. I mean, it looks like it just came off the line. And I pop it on every once in a while. I'm careful, I wear gloves and stuff, but it's just part of the deal. Like, why wouldn't you? That's part of the joy, right?
It has to be. I mean, part of it is like, I am trying to put together a 1956 Topps baseball set. Okay. Because I think they are like,
good luck on that mantle.
I don't remind me. That's gonna last. That's gonna. I just saw Hank Aaron that I was watching, and it was one of the few that wasn't graded, because you get the mantle and Aaron and Clemente and stuff in those years. Yeah, everything's graded, no matter how bad the art is, because
here's a 2 for $700.
Yeah, but they're all good. And I'm like, I gotta find one of each of those that's not graded that I can feel comfortable purchasing.
Right. Yeah.
But I do put them all, they're all in hard plastic, because I do want to get them out and look at them, and
of course,
and enjoy them. And I don't want to put them in a box, and so I'm protecting them as, those little plastic cases are essentially my $500 needles. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's I can look at them as many times as I want. I'm not going to damage the cards, but you have to enjoy this, or what's the purpose in doing it, you know?
Right. Well, and it's, sometimes when friends say, oh, well, sealed records should be opened. And, I say, look, like, it's outlasted its intended purpose, right? Like, if you bought a Model T, you're not going to use it as a daily driver. It's a special occasion type thing, and it's the same thing with that. Absolutely. But what's funny, comparing cards to records, because there are now companies, and I think this is going to be a big thing in the future. And I've been right about records so far, is that they're grading and encapsulating them. And they're ripping like a high-res file so you can still listen to it if it's an open record. But their records, Howlin' Wolf's first record, Moaning at the Moonlight, is a good example. There's one that they graded that is like a 9.4, and record is around $3,000, and so I do think some of those older records that are from the greats, the really classic ones, that it's going to go the way that card grading is.
Wow. So what's the favorite record regardless of how much it's worth, that you have in your possession?
I have an original Appetite for Destruction that's actually in a frame hanging on my wall that is still sealed. That was the first band cover. Yeah. And so it's the first band cover that's got like the robot and the girl on it, not the later cross cover when the stores wouldn't carry the first one.
I didn't know there was this first one.
Yeah, I didn't know.
The first one.
Well, so if you look inside of that copy, which, any self-respecting person owns Appetite for Destruction. So you open it up and there's that painting in there of the robot coming over the fence and the girl and all that. And that was the original cover for the record. And funny enough, I'm a huge Guns N' Roses fan. Just have been since I was a little kid. They're a number one to me. And so Axl wanted the cover of Appetite for Destruction to be the Challenger explosion picture.
Oh, gosh.
Right. And the record company was not going for that. So that painting was their compromise. Right. So I just thought that, it's kind of
so you have that, and it's framed, huh?
It's framed. Yeah. It's under glass. I bought it for $50 when I was a kid, and oh gosh, you can probably find a sealed one that's the same as mine for $600-700 now. I think the record store down the street has one for sale for $800.
Wow. Now, so in what would be your holy grail? Like, what would be one record you'd love? I had my Holy Grail once, and I sold it when we were getting the house. And so I don't know if you know who the 13th Floor Elevators are, Rocky Erickson.
Yeah, were they from Houston?
They were an Austin band, actually.
Yeah, I knew they were Texas because I think Dusty play for him or somebody? I mean, one of the ZZ Top guys did some work for him, didn't he?
They had played together back in the day. Yes, before they formed, the official ZZ Top and all that.
That's how I knew that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Rocky and the 13th Floor Elevators were a huge influence on that whole scene. Janis even opened for them back in the day at Texas U before she was really Janis Joplin. She's standing there doing Ray Charles covers and stuff. So definitely different at the time. But it was a copy of their very first album, and it wasn't sealed, but it had the shrink on it, and it had the "You're Gonna Miss Me" sticker on it. And I had bought it for like $616 quite a few years back. And when I sold it a couple years before the pandemic, I got $919 for it. Now, the cool thing about it is that a museum in Austin bought it, and they had said that they'd been looking forever, and this is the nicest one they'd ever found. And it was gorgeous. And so I saw one with the shrink wrap and sticker on it that was almost as nice. a year and a half now go on eBay for $2,500. And that's if you can even find one.
Gosh.
And it's because so many more people are collecting now, and it's gone back up again. I mean, Sony's about to open up their own pressing plant. They're not doing that if there's not money in it, right? So many more people are collecting again. The demand and the price has risen so sharply over the past 2 or 3 years on some of this stuff. You know, like I said, I sold all my original Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Mudhoney. I had all the variants, all the different colors, all the issues. And I sold them, 75, 150 a piece when we were going through the transition. And now you can get $300 to $500 a piece for some of those. I mean, the market has swung up big time. So
let me ask you, and we'll put an asterisk on this. This is not, we're not telling everybody to go out based on your advice and buy these records. But you as a record collector, and you knowing the trends and having an eye for stuff, what are you putting your money into as far as for a collector? As a collection that is going to increase in value, what do you think the value is right now for records?
A lot of the value right now, and I think will continue to be, is kind of in the dead era stuff. In between the transition to CDs, when vinyl capacity went way down. It is those things. It is your Nirvana, Soundgarden, the grunge stuff, some of the pop stuff that was special edition put out in the 90s and early 2000s. Those things go for a lot of money now. If you're able to find some of it, you go to a garage sale and somebody's got, some grunge records or things like that they're selling and they just don't know what they're worth. Those are the things that you pick up,
and it's based on basically strictly scarcity, just because they're worth.
That's it. Yeah, because there's, I talk to people about this all the time, right? The difference between scarcity and rarity and pricing. I've got a Marvin Gaye What's Going On that still has the shrink wrap and hype stickers on it, and I've got $200 on it, right? Because they go for sometimes more than that. I think the last one I saw went for like 260 on eBay, right? So that's not exactly a rare record, right? It sold very well. They printed a ton of them. But how often do you see them in the marketplace? Not very. So it ends up being more expensive because of that. Fleetwood Mac's Rumors is a great example of that. People get upset because they're like, oh my God, I can't believe that copy of Rumors is $60-$70. I flipped through 1 million of them at garage sales over 30 years. Well, yeah, you did, but then things changed, everybody wanted it all of a sudden,
Like even so.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Hey, you mentioned the Howl and Wolf a while ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a big
Hellhounds or what was it? Yeah. Something good like that. But that is a niche because most people don't even know who Howl and Wolf is, much less be able to say Hellhounds or anything. Right.
Well, outside the record collecting world, yes. Right. But in the record collecting world, people that are deep into it, you're going to know who Howl and Wolf is. And there's just important things to know too, because it isn't just the people that were on the labels. You've got to know the labels. What's the difference between first and third press Chuck Berry rocking at the Hops? What's that label look like? What label was the stereo label versus the mono label? Which one's more valuable? Right. So you start to learn those things and you go down the rabbit hole and you start to learn about artists that you didn't know about. And you go, oh, well, who produced that record? Well, I'm going to go find the other things they produced, especially back before the internet. Record collectors and people that get into it are going to dive. There's always going to be your surface level people that, just kind of collect the pop they listen to. And, that's kind of your bread and butter. And every once in a while you sell a really expensive one.
Geez, I feel like we could talk records and music forever.
There's a lot, yeah.
But I am curious, like, so the records that did sell, like, take Michael Jackson's Thriller, okay? So that's sold, what, 30, 40 million copies?
I think upwards of 50, 60 million now worldwide. Yeah, it is still literally the best-selling record of all time. There were more copies of Thriller printed on vinyl than just about any other record in existence. But it is funny because I'll show up to a garage sale and ask about records, and they'll go, "Oh, well, I do have a copy of Thriller, but I'm not getting rid of that." People just sometimes have their own ideas. They've got sentimental attachment. That's something
you say, I understand.
Right. That's it. I go, hey, cool. You know, if I had to stand there and have a conversation with every person about how their copy of Thriller isn't going to be worth anything, that's what I'd have to do for a living. You know, like,
so what is a good copy of Thriller really actually worth?
25, 30 bucks. Now, when it was very first issued, the very first printing, on the back, you can see that it says produced by Quincy Jones, and it does not have the credit that says produced by Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson. And Michael did not like that. So on the rest of the printings, it says Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson. But if you find one of the very first presses with just the Quincy Jones credit on the back, they're worth about 50, 60 bucks, you know, so nothing incredible, because also they knew it was going to be a huge album. The first press was a few 100,000. You got to think damage, throwaway, all that. There's still a couple 100,000 floating around somewhere, you know, so.
Well, and regardless of what anybody thinks about Michael Jackson,
right.
If you're just a music fan, it's still a great album just to put on and listen to how it was meant to be consumed, you know?
Well, and you know, when it comes to that stuff, it is hard, right? Because it's easy to get into a discussion about this artist did this artist did that.
They all did something.
My favorite band is Guns N' Roses. If I was going to stop listening to a band based on their former actions, then I'd have been done a long time ago.
Yeah, they're all guilty of something. Trust me.
Right. Yeah.
Varying degrees of
except for country stars.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Right. You telling me No Show Jones didn't raise some heck? I know too much about country music to take.
I was thinking somebody closer. I was thinking, you know, somebody more wholesome like David Allan Coe. But
we could go down that rabbit hole too.
Yeah,
we usually do. We usually do.
To prove my love to you when I was a kid. I love Coe, but yeah.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time on him. My dad's cousin drove his tour bus for a while, and he just passed away last week. And of course, he's Shane's godfather, I think. But that's a whole other topic. Let's not get off on that road.
So I'm definitely a co-fan. We had a fun conversation about that. So
yeah, I've got Alan looking out for at least one album.
Yeah, I got a little list.
And then Wade tells me I definitely need to just have you find me a really good copy of Penitentiary Blues. Yeah. He goes, you better just, and I'm like, all right, I'll just.
Okay. You can drive down to Cincinnati and have him sign it for you.
I would if I thought Miss Kim would let me in. She might. I don't know. Who knows? He's still kicking though. He is still kicking.
You know who we lost in this conversation though?
Tina Turner.
Yeah, did you see that?
I got a text. Tina Turner.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
I was going to wait to the end before I said it.
One of the first records out here displaying on the rack is a copy of Private Dancer here. That's too bad.
Better go mark it up. I'll always know where I was when Tina Turner died.
Yeah, talking to me.
Yes, that's right.
So Alan, do you do? So do you have an online presence as far as if people want to buy albums or something?
I don't, and I've done that on purpose.
Okay.
Like I was saying, you can go online if your wallet's big enough and find almost anything you want. There's some exceptions. You might have to wait for a while, but normally it's going to come along, right? But man, when you're really into collecting records and you go to record stores, you end up seeing a lot of the same stuff, right? People get their inventory in, they bring in new records too and all that, which I'm not doing yet. I'm just, vintage stuff. When you're really looking for something that's rare and you go through that rack and there it is right there, there's just, it's like Christmas morning at a record store, it's just a great feeling. And I want to provide that for people again and again. You can be somewhat financially detrimental and maybe hear it first, but I'm building something and I have a vision, so I'm that's where I'm going. So
well, I listen, I'm pulling for you. I think you can tell the Howler's pulling for you. This is
Absolutely.
a great, and I think what the whole pandemic did for a lot of people is you really had to sit back and say, okay, how much time do we really have?
Right.
And am I going to spend it doing something I really love doing? Or am I going to spend it working for people who are going to fire me so they can get a new son-in-law job or something?
That's it. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you must be surrounded by stuff you love.
Right. I kept thinking to myself, okay, I've done well in sales. I've got a good resume. I could go get another sales job, go through the process, no problem at all. But I'd be sitting there cold calling people, fantasizing about being at an estate sale buying records.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't I just do that?
I mean, so think about that. What it's probably a much better high to walk into an estate sale and find a Howlin' Wolf record or a Mark than it is to get a $50,000 commission for selling some credit card thing.
Honestly, I mean, sometimes it feels like that. Yeah, there was one of the best collections that I've ever bought. I answered an ad on Facebook Marketplace that didn't even have any pictures, just said that, Grandpa really loved music and it was a great collection. And I show up and I pull into this trailer park and I'm thinking to myself, oh man, like, come on. And I was going through those boxes and you got to keep a little bit of a poker face, but I was sweating, man. I mean, original Black Sabbath, Thin Lizzy, Guns N' Roses, just everything hard rock that you would ever want to buy. And I mean, just amazing condition. There was 8 boxes of this stuff, every Zeppelin, Stones, Floyd. I mean, everything you could think of and a bunch you can't. All the Kiss, I mean, all of it. And I ended up paying $400 for this collection. And I got lucky, and that will happen. It's a numbers game, right? Every 20 estate sales that you visit, one might have some records and one might have some decent records. It's you go through a lot of disappointment to get that big smile,
but if you're not out there doing it, you're never going to find
exactly. And if you're not on it, then the good stuff gets taken. Now, if I'm buying records from people, I have a rule, and just that if I'm buying a collection, I take the collection. I don't just pick the stuff that's good and leave the crap behind for the people to deal with. That's my job, right? So I do that, and that way, I'm not just leaving people with nothing. I just think that's fair. If I'm removing the problem, I'm removing the whole problem. So
what do you do with your 10th Andy Williams Christmas special? What do you do with this?
I hate to admit it, but every once in a while, something will end up in the recycling. It does happen. But you'll see in my truck, I make dividers when I send you the little video. So I also do that for other people too. So records that I know are just never going to sell, I turn them into dividers for other collectors, and they like them a lot. So
that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool. At least that makes
the whole buffalo, right? So,
so Alan, so tell everybody where the best place to find you at as far as finding you on social media. And this is where we'll let everybody know it, even if you can't go support you in person, because right now you are just in Washington.
Yep.
And not everybody obviously is going to be able to go, but it is important for everybody to go. And like, if you're got an Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, whatever, it is really important to go and follow you, because that stuff does matter. I know people hate it and it's like, oh, this is ridiculous, but it does. It gets you.
It really does matter. Yeah.
Yeah. It gets you up in the algorithm and it makes you relevant, and more people get to see you that can actually experience you, and it helps your business grow. And people may not realize that. I think
Absolutely.
sometimes people think it's a pain in the neck, but it's a necessary evil. And plus, then everybody's going to know when your merch is ready for sale.
Yes.
For sale.
I will be working on it. Yes. Get it up and running. And one thing is too, I don't post things online, but if you call me up and say, hey, I'm looking for this, if I have it, I will take pictures and I will send it to you. Absolutely. You don't have to come see the truck physically, but I do that. So.
Well, I think if everybody who has listened to this episode is a record junkie, or if there's something they're looking for and they don't make you their first phone call, then something's wrong with them, because it is obvious that you
categorically
are the real deal and know exactly what you're doing.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
And between us, is there a Jake Brennan vinyl album out there? Of all the bands he played in, is there a vinyl album that Jake Brennan would have appeared on?
I think that he had done some 7 inches, some stuff when he was younger, but I think that most of it's pretty hard to find. I don't have a particular band name. That's a good idea. I should look and see that.
That would be.
But I thought I had heard him at some point mention that he was in a band that released at least some 7 inches.
That is, I'll have to shoot him a message here when we're done and say that's we're on the lookout for some.
Yeah. I bet there's something floating around.
and I already thanked him for bringing your name up and talking about you, because I think it's important to celebrate stories like this, like your backstory and what you're trying to do, and I think it's a very noble pursuit. Sure.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So go ahead and tell everybody where to find you, and what they can do to kind of follow along the next part of the story for Bread Truck Records.
Yeah. So I do have a Facebook and an Instagram, and it's super straightforward. It's just Bread Truck Records. That's it. So you can look that up, and then you'll know you're in the right place, because you'll see the truck in the picture, and it is red and white with a little bit of black mixed in there. So you'll know you have the right spot. So I have been thinking about doing a TikTok, but I have yet to get my 2 teenage daughters to sit down long enough to help me with it. So I can get there eventually. I don't know.
I can envision, so take this for what it's worth, a Bread Truck Records TikTok where you have your daughters go pick out a record and play it for the first time. play like a song. I
think
if you was like
do like an impression.
Yeah, like what do they think of somebody very obscure from the 60s or 70s that they may have never heard of, and I think that'd be kind of cool. You might get some traction.
Yeah, that would be. No, I think that's a great idea. I try to give her these little music history lessons, and we're talking about kind of the way music industry works. And I had picked up a record the other day that was on London, the same record company that the Stones were on, but these guys are the Bachelors, right? And they would take all this stuff, these bands that they thought might be kind of alike, and they'd throw them all up against the wall and see what stuck, right? And I use the example of the Vines, the Hives, and the White Stripes when I was a kid. and then they do the same thing now. These artists all kind of sound alike to us. We're going to throw them all out there and see which ones actually make it and which ones don't. And the record industry is a beast. It's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is an industry, right?
Yeah, it sure is.
The record business is a business.
No doubt.
Or show business is a business.
Yeah, gosh.
Uncompromisingly, yes.
Well, Alan, hey, thanks again for hanging out with us. And remember, everybody, go check out Bread Truck Records follow them on Instagram, follow their Facebook page, and when that TikTok page comes out, let's follow that. And when the merch comes out, I'm going to be one of the first ones that order a T-shirt because
thank you.
I think they look sweet. Have no choice but to look sweet. So thanks a lot and good luck, and just keep grinding away. And I'm hoping big things from you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to be on and talk with you guys. It was a lot of fun. So thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.